Ontario relies on nuclear energy to keep the lights on, but nuclear energy creates nuclear waste, and there currently isn't a satisfactory long-term solution for what to do with that. There is a new plan, however, to bury low and intermediate nuclear waste in a deep geologic repository under the Lake Huron shoreline. Joining us now to tell us how that plan is playing, Larry Kramer. He's the mayor of the municipality of Kincardine. And Bernane Lloyd, she is coordinator at Northwatch, a coalition of environmental groups, and we welcome both of you to TVO tonight. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Steve.
I gather you two have sort of crossed swords a little bit at previous occasions, but...
Certainly crossed paths.
Crossed paths. We won't say crossed swords. Okay. Mr. Mayor, let me start with you. Not that I'm not delighted to have you as a guest on the program tonight, because we are happy when people accept our invitations. But this is really Ontario Power Generation's plan, and they won't accept our invitation to be here. We asked the Nuclear Waste Management Association and the Canadian Nuclear Association, both of whom I think probably have more expertise than you in these matters, to be here, and they also declined our invitation. They said you're the guy. Why are you the guy to talk to about this?
Well, I think mostly, Steve, because I'm the one that asked them to do this on behalf of my municipality and my council. And we approached them back in 2001 about coming up with a plan for a permanent solution to low and intermediate level waste. It's being stored in Kincardine now for over 40 years. And as generation goes on, the volumes slowly and gradually increase. It's been done extremely safely, but it's been done on an interim basis. And we believe that it is better for ourselves, for improved safety, and to leave the right legacy to our children in the long term.
Let's just do one more thing, though, on this, though. Did you ever work for Bruce Power?
No, I did not.
Do you have any particular expertise in nuclear issues?
No, I do not.
Okay, so again, why are you the guy who's here answering questions that really ought to be put to other people who won't accept our invitation?
Well, Steve, I have worked hard to make sure that I understand the issues. They are a major issue in our community, and I have traveled the world going and visiting these sites, satisfying myself that what's being done and what's being proposed is the right solution. And we're involved with this no matter what happens. One of the hardest things for the industry in this case, or anywhere in the world, is to find a willing host community, someone that's willing to do this. And our community has people with the expertise. We have the scientists, we have the engineers,
basically,
and we have the operating facilities.
You've got it all, don't you, from the province?
When we have all of Ontario's low and intermediate level waste.
All of the nuclear waste?
No, all of Ontario's low and intermediate level waste, but we also have between 35 and 40% of the spent fuel. The Bruce site is, as far as we know, the largest nuclear power plant in the world by its output. And it's a very unique facility.
And you've got lots of experience in your community dealing with it.
Our community as a whole does, and I'm the leader of that community.
Okay. Bernane, going to you right now. You're representing Northwatch. What is that?
We're a coalition of groups in northeastern Ontario. So we're a generalist organization. We work on mining, forestry, nuclear waste issues. Nuclear waste was one of the issues that really inspired our formation as a coalition. Back in the 1970s, Northern Ontario was investigated as a potential burial site for high-level waste, and in the late 80s, there was a proposal, Atomic Energy of Canada Limited's geological disposal concept. Long name, big idea, bury nuclear waste in the Canadian Shield, and there was a federal hearing about to begin, 10-year process, and so we went from a couple of networks to a coalition of groups to provide a regional voice in that.
Do you have any particular expertise in nuclear issues, you yourself?
I'm a generalist, so I have worked on this issue. Founding members of our group had worked on it for decades before me. Since 1988, I have been schooled in the citizen science of nuclear waste. We've been through a number of different review processes, and in a hearing like the one just completed on the deep geologic repository Ontario Power Generation is proposing, we have some expert assistance. So we had 6 technical experts assisting us in our review of the case, but I am certainly not an expert. I'm a generalist, and like Larry, I've worked hard over decades to understand the science and be able to evaluate these kinds of proposals.
Okay, last I looked at a map, Lake Huron's not in northeastern Ontario. So do you have any particular understanding of the area that we're talking about tonight?
Actually, the north shore of Lake Huron is in northeastern Ontario.
Well, tell that to the people in Timmins that that's northeastern Ontario.
Well, actually, they accept the 6 federal districts include Algoma, which is the north shore of Lake Huron. Manitoulin District is one of the 6 federal districts in northeastern Ontario. So our interest is both, we share Lake Huron. Our membership is on the north shore of Lake Huron. But we also have an interest in this because of its precedent-setting nature. Because Northern Ontario has this history of being identified as a potential burial site for low-level waste, high-level waste, because we have a dozen communities now being studied as potential burial sites for the high-level waste, we have a definite interest in this project, both in its, as a project in its own right, the problems we see with the project and potential impacts, but also as a precedent.
Okay, let's, just before we go into more of the pros and cons in the debate tonight that we're going to have, let's give people some background, because my suspicion is not everybody knows what a deep geologic repository is. This is the part of the province that we're talking about. There's Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, the Bruce Nuclear Complex, right nestled in Kincardine, on the shores of Lake Huron, houses the Bruce nuclear reactors as well as the Western Waste Management Facility, where all of, as the mayor told us, the province's low and medium nuclear waste is stored, and where the Deep Geologic Repository, the DGR, would be constructed. Now, according to OPG, the Deep Geologic Repository project would store low and intermediate level radioactive waste 680 meters below ground in a layer of what they call low permeability rock. It would store the waste more than 1 kilometer diagonally beneath the shoreline of Lake Huron, with the site opening 1 kilometer from the shore at ground level. Now, just, Mr. Mayor, so we understand this, would this project sort of be like digging a big mine shaft?
Be very similar technology.
Similar to that. There's lots of complications and confusion, and people are not necessarily thrilled with the idea of building a big mine shaft where they live or perhaps close to water. Can you tell us why you think this would be an acceptable thing to do here?
Well, excuse me, Steve. The geology of our area is exceptional for this, and all of the scientific studies have demonstrated that. It's also intimately linked with the facility itself. It's one of the reasons why that our area was chosen for this type of facility. It's in a limestone layer, a little over 200 meters, which is 600 feet. It's 60 stories. It's quite robust, and on top of that is another layer that's another 200 200 meters or 600 plus feet of an absorptive shale layer, which is somewhat salty. It's unfractured. All the science shows that because of the incredibly low seismic signature of the Great Lakes region.
Would digging a mine shaft there, the equivalent thereof, unsettle or affect any of that?
The science says no. And these layers that we're talking about are sedimentary stone that has been formed there over millions of years. The geologists tell us that it has been undisturbed for in the area of 450 million years.
Okay, Bernine, I need you to comment on that then. 680 meters down in stable rock formations 450 million years old. Science says that's pretty stable.
Observation says when you're digging a mine, you're trying to get materials out. A deep geologic repository, the theory is you're putting something in and it's going to stay in. And that's where the uncertainties begin. With this site, the uncertainties aren't unique to this particular proposal. We've seen similar issues emerge with other proposals, but a disturbed site and an undisturbed site are fundamentally different. And when you disturb this site, if if you were to go with the hypotheses that this rock formation is as stable as Mayor Kramer and OPG suggest, that's one thesis. But when you disturb the site, you've got a fundamentally different geologic environment you're working with. And there are numerous uncertainties, both in how that site has been characterized as an undisturbed site, and certainly how it will perform as a disturbed site. And these uncertainties were explored in the hearing. Uncertainties around things like the gas level, the rate and the cause of the generation of gas at depth. The level of permeability or impermeability of the rock formations. These were explored, and the uncertainties were acknowledged, but what Ontario Power Generation argues is that they'll keep exploring those issues. They'll do what they call a geoscientific verification program, and they'll come up with the answers a little later.
You accept that characterization of what's at play here?
I accept the characterization has been done and has been proven and backed up by some of the world's leading scientists. The area that we're talking about is drier than the Sahara Desert. There is no water down there, and I shouldn't say there is none, but it took the world's largest equipment to squeeze even a drop of water out for them to test.
So can I just understand that? It's right near Lake, it's on the shoreline of Lake Huron.
It's a mile and a quarter away from it. It's on shore, okay?
But there's no water there.
There's at depth. We're at the repository of the proposed depth. The stone is drier than the Sahara Desert. And that's because the millions of tons of rock that are on top of it over the millennium have squeezed all the water out of it.
Do you accept that?
So the predictions are that the water will move slowly. So there's two ways that radionuclides move out from a repository, speaking in the hypothetical. They move out through water or through gas. So there is evidence of gas generation at depth, which is unexplained. There are predictions made by Ontario Power Generation or hypotheses put forward that the water is moving very, very, very slowly. So
slowly means it could take millions of years to get there?
It could take a long time as an undisturbed site. When you have a disturbed site, and one of the shortcomings of the OPG work coming into this is there are a very limited number of boreholes that they've done. They've done only half a dozen boreholes to characterize quite a large site, a 40-hectare subsurface footprint.
So the results might not be representative.
That's a pretty big site, and that's a very small number of boreholes. But what their boreholes tell them is that what their investigation to date tells them is that it's fairly dry. The water moves very slowly, and they have that. They've made those predictions based on, sort of the underground characteristics that they've been able to absorb from these limited number of drill. But when you have a disturbed site, you have a very different scenario. And
he's already said that's not true. He's already said that disturbed or undisturbed shouldn't change the fundamental features there.
But you have a shaft. You have actually two shafts. You've got an access shaft and a ventilation shaft, and that is a very likely scenario. So in the international lingo, nuclear waste burial proposals are based on what's called a multi-barrier concept. In this case, Ontario Power Generation is arguing that the multi-barrier is multiple natural barriers. So they're saying that the limestone is a barrier, the shale is a barrier.
Isn't that true?
Into that barrier, if you call it that, you have a shaft. And then you have a shaft, there is going to be an artificial or an engineered seal constructed within that shaft.
And is it your view that even with that natural and artificial barrier, something's going to leak out?
It is my view that the uncertainties are too great to proceed. So there are shaft seal failure scenarios. How's that for a phrase?
I'm following, go ahead.
That show that if that shaft seal was to fail, there would be an unexpected release, an unacceptable release.
Okay, I'm going to let him in on this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This whole theory would require magic properties of these wastes. They currently are protected and have been over the last 40 years. The low-level waste, many of them are essentially in standard construction garages, protected by about a 32nd of an inch of steel. They will be protected in this case by in the neighborhood of 1,000 feet of unfractured rock. Other places in the world, like the waste isolation pilot plant in Carlsbad, New Mexico, which are down near the same depth, have very well proven that the construction is incredibly robust. It is so secure that it cannot be detected anywhere in the world from the surface.
Is that facility like the one
it's
you're trying to build here?
It's a similar design, only it's in salt instead of limestone.
And it's only been operating for about a decade, and they have not yet even come to the point of installing the shaft seal, and they have engineered barriers required. So OPG has decided that they don't require additional engineered barriers, extra packaging. WIP does, the Western Isolation Pilot Plant does.
The engineered barrier is salt. Okay.
So salt is doing the job in your view down there in the same way that rock would do it here.
Exactly. It's rock salt, and it does in Sweden in a 50 meter deep repository that's entered right through the Baltic Sea and is only 50 meters under it. It is absolutely secure, dry, and incredibly robust security.
Okay, let me just understand here for a second. This stuff lasts for millions of years, right?
No.
No?
No.
Explain.
Okay, the waste, low level waste is generally considered to be go to background levels within 500 years. But that's significant in that that's the time from, say, Christopher Columbus to now. And in its current, there's nothing dangerous about the current form of doing it, but it would require institutional controls in the period of 500 years. And that's the issue, right? How could you guarantee policing and the type of security that humans would provide, the funding and everything for 500 years in an interim basis? And if you take intermediate level, the scientists say that it will last and go to background in approximately between 1,000 and 2,000 years. But that's a time frame that would take you back to Christ, right? So institutional controls in that case are just not the right thing. But as long as the institutional controls are there, it's been well proven that they've worked, and they've worked for 40 to 50 years now.
Why bury it instead of do something else with it?
Well, what else would you do? We looked at 3 different options. We did not start out to build a deep geologic repository. We started out to find the best possible, safest solution for our people, the people of Ontario, and the people of the Great Lakes Basin in the longest term possible. We looked at 3 different options: enhanced processing and storage, which would have done a bunch of packaging but still required a final solution for it, or a final home for it, as well as surface concrete repositories, which are concrete vaults, I should say, which is what's used in Switzerland, it's used in Spain, it's used in France. And
you went with this third option.
The third option was a rock repository, either shallow or deep. Because of some of the best geology in the world, the one with the highest safety margin was the one that was chosen, and that was a deep repository. The cost difference between that and the other system, all cost in, was estimated to be somewhere in the 15 to 20% range. So it wasn't a huge difference to have many, many, many times safer long-term plan.
How long will it last for?
Forever.
Forever?
In my view, yes. Once closed. And I've been also to Mount Terry, which is a repository that demonstrates. It's not a repository. It's a lab in a mountain in Switzerland, where they're doing experiments on different types of seals, and it's a wet mountain inside where the rock is, but there's a layer inside of opalinous clay, and the clay, where the clay is, it's absolutely dry. The clays, opalinous clays, bentonite clays have demonstrated to me that when they're in and packed, they are less permeable than the already totally impermeable rock.
Tell me this, anything in there you want to challenge before I ask you something else?
A couple of things.
Sure.
One is the intermediate level waste have a range of lifetimes. So some of them are as short as a couple of thousand years, as Mayor Kramer suggests. Some of them are much longer, tens of thousands of years. Ontario Power Generation's packaging, they describe it as being effective in terms of decades. The waste isolation pilot plant that Mayor Kramer refers to, they require engineered overpacks. They require repackaging. Ontario Power Generation does not require that. Their plan over and over again is hallmarked by uncertainty and shortcuts, where they could do additional protection. They've chosen not to.
But tell me this, for better or for worse, we've got nuclear power in Ontario. Half of our power almost is created this way. And that's not going to change in the near future. That's probably not going to change in the long-term future. So we got to do something with this. Now, I appreciate that you're probably against nuclear power altogether, but we're stuck with it for now. So what do you want to do with this?
We want to take the most precautionary approach. And so what we've been doing in Canada is we've been moving decade by decade, always down the same path. So first high-level waste, now we're looking at the, sort of the poster child for nuclear waste burial at Kincardine with the low and intermediate level waste. We need to stop and let the science develop. The international discussion for fuel waste is moved to extended on-site storage, because there is no repository on the near horizon, and there has been since the 1950s. The groupthink in the industry and among many of the regulators has been that we will bury the waste. We'll have a solution that way. We've been pursuing the same solution. Now we've just finished 25 days of hearing on a particular proposal, and it is hallmarked by uncertainties, unknowns, and undecided.
So you would prefer on-site storage, which is presumably less intensive than this? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would, for the next several decades, we've kind of moved into grouping the low and intermediate, which is the subject of this proposal,
right,
and the fuel waste, improved on-site storage. So not status quo storage. To look at improving the containment system. When you look at any waste, you look at reducing its source, dealing with it as close to source as possible, but then you look at, what are your basic criteria that you want to see in a waste management system. And in the case of nuclear waste, we want to see a system that allows it to be monitored, to be measured for remediation, for replacement, re-encapsulation, whatever is required. If you move ahead with a system that is loaded with uncertainties, if you give if we see approval for a project where many of the basic design aspects are still undecided or undetermined, what we're doing actually is we're foreclosing the opportunity to make better decisions when we've resolved some of those uncertainties.
We're down to our last few minutes here, so forgive me if I sort of jump to the final act of our play here. How much does Ontario Power Generation pay Kincardine to do this?
It's about approximately $30 million over 30 years for Kincardine and the Bruce communities, which is, in municipal terms, very little.
$1 million a year is very little to Kincardine?
It's not $1 million to Kincardine. It's about 600,000.
600,000 to Kincardine.
So, for municipal governments, that's not what this is about. I know that the opponents like to focus in on that, but this is about enhanced safety and a permanent system. We've heard many people talk about the enhanced process and storage. It was option one in what we looked at. It doesn't provide the level of safety, and that's proven by the science.
I understand, but you won't be surprised to hear your critics say that basically Ontario Power Generation, by contributing money to the municipality's bottom line, by giving money to local, whatever they do, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and baseball teams and all that, is trying to buy goodwill. Is that not true?
I would turn it around and say we asked them to do this project. They didn't come to us. And you know, one of the things, we've looked at a lot of different, options and different things, and looked at things like, are there other communities out there that would offer to do this? Port Hope pretty much proved that that isn't the case. And we've offered to do this as a community. It's gone through a complete democratic process. I've been elected twice by our people proposing this and saying that this is the right thing that we should do.
No, I get that, but no disrespect intended. You're a municipal politician. Mm-hmm. This is an issue with a provincial interest. This is an issue with a national interest. Yeah. This is an issue with an international interest. There are people in the United States who have a concern about this as well. This is on a Great Lake, after all, that we share. Why should you get to make the call and nobody else seems to have any decision-making powers in this?
Well, what do you mean by that? The provincial government owns Ontario Power Generation and has been intimately involved in it. This has been going on since 2001. It's been so public that it's been unbelievable.
But your council decides, right?
Our council decided for us, and then it had to be submitted to the most intense regulatory review that's ever been, any project's ever been put forward in Canada.
And who will make the final decision?
The Joint Review Panel will make the final, well, the minister will make the final decision. The Joint Review Panel will make a recommendation to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Federally.
If he's satisfied with it, he can then either approve it or he can then send it to Cabinet.
Okay, just in our last minute here, I mean, they would say that they've done their homework. They've done their checks and balances along the way. There are, you can see this isn't just the mayor's decision. There are various people who have an interest in this and will have a say in this.
Well, Ontario Power Generation has had an interest in this for decades. Certainly their research and their development of this burial scheme began well before the 2001 date that Mayor Kramer refers to. We've heard different narratives as to how and when the municipality got involved in the game. The narrative we heard during the hearing was that it wasn't 2001, it was 2002, after the Nuclear Fuel Waste Act passed. So it's a changing story, but the story, you know, continues to be that the municipality has, you know, brought this forward. The municipality, despite how much money they've been paid, they haven't been able to buy popular support, even by their own numbers.
Well, he campaigned on it and he won the last election.
The community poll that they did, the community poll that they did in 2005, often referenced, only shows 42% support of those who were canvassed. That was within one municipality. We heard lots during the hearing about people who were not included in that community poll. And I think what OPG has put forward is a proposition to the Joint Review Panel to let them design it later. And I think that is not a good product after. Okay,
I gave him the first word, I'm going to give you the last word. And we thank you both for coming in and sharing your views on this tonight. Thank you both very much. Larry Kramer, the Mayor of the Municipality of Kincardine, Bernaine Lloyd, the Project Coordinator for Northwatch. My thanks to you both.
Thank you, Steve.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.